Giants looking to bounce back after what was a subpar performance against the Dallas Cowboys. This weekend, home against the Bears.
And Zach is back for Gang Green, but will it lead to a win in Pittsburgh?
And also back is the great Greg Buttle, member of the all-time Jet team. He does pre- and post-game on ESPN Radio and drops some knowledge on the New York Blitz for us. As always, we're reporting and recording this from high above 42nd Street in the Pix 11 Sports Department.
This is the Pix 11 New York Sports Nation podcast.
All right, everybody, thank you for taking the time to listen. As always, please like, follow, subscribe, rate, and review, all that good stuff. We do appreciate it.
Welcome to the show. Sadly, neither team won last week. We had the first 2 weeks where at least somebody won. Nobody won last week, but the winner might be the Jets because they get Zach Wilson back. Greg Buttle, what can we expect from the kid?
How much time do we have?
All the time you want.
Yeah, this is a podcast.
Sure. You pontificate, I'll drink coffee.
What can we expect from the kids? Are you kidding me? I'd look like Kenny with all this gray hair if I was in the prediction business. Who was that guy, Kenny?
Kenny White.
Kenny White.
Wizard of Oz.
The Wizard of Oz.
We love
There
him.
we go. Okay, so here it is. What you want to see and what you will see might be two different things with Zach Wilson. It's all based upon what the Jets feel. You can say he's 100% healthy, but no one's ever 100% healthy. Just coming off of the injury to his knee. You've got two young offensive tackles along the line. You've got some tight ends that were helping them out. So it depends what they want to do with their offense.
Score points. I think they want to score points.
I would think that's a pretty good idea.
They've struggled. It hasn't shown throughout some of the games this year.
Maybe more than the team they're
Right.
playing.
You think you're going to score points running the ball all day against the Steelers? I don't think so. You can go out there and look at numbers. Steelers have given up like 147 yards a game rushing, and it really doesn't matter if you don't score touchdowns. How much you rush for rush? Steelers are 1-2. Jets are 1-2. The Jets can run the ball. The Steelers got what they have rushing for the last the last 3 years, and he's done a great job, Najee Harris. And when you look at what the Jets have, you can say, listen, they've got Carter and Hall. They got a 1-2 punch rush in the ball. Okay, so let's run the ball all game. All right, so what are you going to do? You're going to run the ball all game. You're going to shut down a passing game, and you're going to hope to make the play at the end of the game. I don't think that's the way you win in the NFL. You may win like that if your team is top 5 NFL defense in 5 categories, where you're number 1 in 5 categories. Then you can play that Tampa Bay game the way they do down there. Tampa Bay's defense is very good, but the Jets don't have that yet. The Jets' vulnerabilities right now are in their secondary, and I would even say along their defensive line right now, because you're not getting the consistent pass rush. You may get some pressures, and I love pressures, but you're going to have to get sacks at some time or another. And when you take a look at that, I hate the word complimentary football, but if you can get some pass rush, your corners can play better. If your safeties play the way they played before, doesn't matter what you do up front in reality. So you've got to get better in the back half of your defense, and you've got to become a little more aggressive in pass rush for the Jets. I don't care if you got to bring an extra guy. I think you have to do that. You've got to get a sack in there somewhere.
Well, with that being said, I'm curious what you think about the outburst from Quinnen Williams last week, him saying that he wanted the coaches to put it on the defensive line. He wanted to put it on the front 4 to get pressure on the quarterback.
Okay, so first of all, just like all of us in the media, you take it out of context, because not one person knows what the hell was being said on that sidelines and why it was said and what spurned that. But I would.
Well, I know what they told us after the game.
I'm not cursing you out or anything.
No, I get it, but I'm just basing it on what they told us after the game.
It's not. It's like this. You get in a game and it's an emotional game,
right?
And you come down to something where you are. I'm going to use the word handcuffed. You're handcuffed defensively to do what they tell you to do, or call whatever the play call is, and you're going to run that play. And you're saying, no, the last time we ran that play, it didn't work right. We got to change it up. So maybe you change it up, you go to the sidelines, you get in trouble. What did you do that for? Well, put it on us, So all of these things happen in the heat of a moment. But there comes a time where your defense has to become your defense, not the coach's defense. Your offense has to be your offense, not the coach's offense. Because you're out there playing the game and they're coaching. They did all they should have done in the middle of the week. That being said, you can't go on the field and lay an egg in the secondary and have mental mistakes all the time. Physical mistakes, missing tackles in the secondary by safeties. You can't have that. That can't exist on the football field. You can get physically run over. You can get physically raced, but you can't get a missed tackle, a dropped head, a mental error. Those things account for so many points in this league. I will tell you, 80% of the points scored by offense is because of the 12th guy on the field, not the offensive guy, the defensive guy that made the mistake. And that's what happens all the time. You better clean that up, and then all of a sudden you're going to see a Jets team that you're going, oh, that's the way they were supposed to play? And I'm just going to use the Jets. But there's 17, 18 teams in the league that they're doing the same thing. The difference is, where does the ball bounce and how many points am I scoring? Okay, if I'm going to score, if I want to win in this league, number one, you better score over 23 points a game. Then you're going to win. Because
turnovers.
but no, not turnovers yet. I'm going to that. So your defense should allow under 20 points a game. Once you get to that where you have that confidence in your defense of what you're doing, this is our goals. Our goal isn't to stop somebody from rushing 120 yards in a game. Our goal is to stop them scoring points. And that's what it is. You've got to stop them from scoring points, get past all the other nonsense of what statistics happen in fantasy football, and those are the two biggest things out there. And then you get into turnovers.
Well, but then there would be concerns about this coaching staff. Because, how could there not be? LaFleur is a game planner. When you look at the development with Wilson returning now off the knee injury that he suffered.
Moose, look out, he's rolling up his sleeves. I'm sorry you were on there. I just want you to be, I got your back here, man.
I get it, but, has his coaching staff set themselves apart? The Jets are good enough to look a lot better than the way they have.
Say.
That's the Jets are good enough to look better than what they are and what they're perceived to be. And Saleh with the nonsense and the rhetoric after week one, which I thought fell flat. Team bailed them out, in that Brown game, and then they laid an egg last week against the Cincinnati Bengals. Now you take on a Steeler team. Trubisky is what he is. At one point in the Brown game, he was averaging 5 yards an attempt. There's no trust there. Their one deep threat is George Pickens, the receiver out of Georgia, who made an unbelievable catch against the Browns. Harris can run it. The problem is they have issues along that offensive line as well, and the defense doesn't have T.J. Watt. So, that alleviates some of the concern of the offensive line. The team should look a lot better than it does, Greg.
What part of the conversation I started with weren't you listening to?
I was listening to it all.
Well, because you obviously weren't listening. Mark Malusis, you were not listening to me
I was listening
intently.
to it all, but no, it's scoring points. I agree with you about that, but we can look at this team, and then you can look at the coaching staff. You look at the staff because everyone draws in on the players and who's available, who's not, the blow up and the flare up on the sideline, but you get to this staff. Is this staff getting the best out of these guys?
I don't think the staff is getting the best out of certain guys. These guys it's too broad for me.
All right. So do you think Zach will? Do you have confidence we're going to see the best of Zach Wilson this year?
I think you're going to see the best of Zach Wilson that he could possibly be in this game.
Okay.
Now he might be better the next couple games.
Okay.
And by the way, I don't know where that barometer starts.
I see what you're saying.
Right.
So he's going to be as good as he can be this week.
That's correct.
We're not going to see the best of Zach Wilson that we could ever see.
Because he hasn't played enough yet.
Right.
Greg, what was your impressions of Wilson last year when you watched him?
In the beginning of the year is totally different than the back year. The last 7-8 games, I go, that's the quarterback the Jets should have. That's the quarterback that can win them 12 games a year.
Okay.
Now, I haven't seen the quarterback that's going to win them 17 or 15 or 12. I saw that in a small piece last year.
Yeah,
so to me, what I look at, I go, this kid's got upside. I didn't see it in Darnold, although I thought Darnold, when he came out, was a pretty good athlete, could throw the ball. But you don't know what's in their head. You don't know what's between their ears. But it looked to me like Zach Wilson got some of the between his ears stuff out of the attic and started to really start playing. And again, the coach can only do so much. It's like I've always said 1,000 times. Look, don't coach Lawrence Taylor. Just let him go out there and go get the guy.
Yeah, but there are no Lawrence Taylors on this team.
Well, here's the difference between that. You don't know the difference between Lawrence Taylor and this other guy. You only see a difference because Lawrence Taylor's abilities to do things are so elevated. When you talk about GOATs, he's the only GOAT. Just so you know, we're on the same page. That's how I think of it.
Yeah.
So my thing is that there are players here that are an inch away from being really good. And what's the inch away? I really believe it's between their ears. And you can't coach between ears. You can prepare a guy, and I sat it, I've seen it, I've lived it. You can prepare a guy for a game, and he goes out there and he vapor locks. Vapor lock, in a colloquial term, is he goes blank in his brain. He goes, what defense are we playing? Where am I going? Because he's thinking about a lot of different things. He's not thinking about what's at hand. And I think it's a discipline that players must go through, and where you set up yourself and say, this is a business. This is the organizational chart of what I have to do this week to prepare. And I don't think they all have it. Everyone has a little thing that they're going to do. Half of them don't watch film. And I don't mean I mean in the NFL. Have them, if every player watched the film the way quarterbacks watch it, you'd have a lot of players that don't make mistakes. But they don't, and that's the problem.
So this weekend, the law firm of Wilson & Wilson opens up. Now, you talked about what you saw with Zach Wilson was a kid that could win 12 games in this league. Now you had the number one pick. You had the receiver out of Ohio State. Should we be watching the game a little bit differently? Should we not be looking necessarily for wins and losses, but for development and see if there's chemistry between the two Wilsons? Because if you're right about what you saw with Zach last year, he is a guy that could win 12 wins. Now you got a young receiver. Should we be looking for something to build on into the future?
Well, chemistry is if you understand chemistry and chemical makeup of things, you understand that oil and water don't mix. But what you do understand is the result. I want to see if that's the result. I got to know what the result is first, so I can know who's my oil and water. Because oil and water is great. I know what I'm getting from that. Mm-hmm. It's the ones that you go out there, you think it's oil and water. Next thing you know, it's all mixed up and it doesn't work. Or one.
I'm so confused by this. Do we want it to mix? Do we not want it to mix?
No, we want to understand it so that we can put them in that position.
Mix
okay.
In salad dressing.
All right.
Oil and water, you do not want to mix.
That's correct. So what you do is now that's the way you can make
good clarity.
I'm hungry. It's lunchtime.
That's why you're here.
That's the way you can now come out there and say to your football team, this is what we have, and now I can use everybody to the best of their ability. I will tell you right now, I'm sure some of the coaches are flabbergasted at some of the mistakes these players have been made, and the veterans are making them. And I'm just talking about the Jets, but I'm telling you, every single team in this league, you guys.
Let's talk about some of those mistakes though for a second, specifically to the Jets, right? Since this is the New York podcast here. John Franklin Myers, that penalty falling on top. What are your thoughts on that?
Take me through the play. I forget it.
He pushes. He's chasing Burrow out of the pocket, pushes him to the ground after he releases the ball, and then falls on top of him. They throw the flag.
Okay, so
is that a mental mistake? Is that a physical mistake?
Third down play that gave him first down.
Right.
Let me just say this to you. Okay. He should know better than to even touch the quarterback when he's rolled out of the pocket. Especially after the minute he throws the ball, don't touch him. He should know that. But at fast speed, maybe John Franklin Myers doesn't recognize that as he's going to touching the ball's left. In slow motion, you can certainly tell, oh, why'd you touch him? And the worst part was as he characteristically fell on him, that was the penalty. It's not because he pushed, because he didn't extend his arms. He actually went to hold up, but he fell on him. That's what gave him the penalty. You can't fall on the quarterback. You can't push him down. Just, you know what? You chase him to the
right, but you said you started this whole thing by saying, right, there's mental mistakes and there's physical mistakes.
Mistake.
That's okay. That's what I'm asking. Is that a mental mistake or a physical mistake?
That's both. In one thing, that's both. Because,
Okay.
physically he couldn't slow himself down fast enough. And again, you don't see it in fast time, you only see it in slow motion. And so the thing is that I know how fast that stuff goes. And you just don't
Well, the
understand.
first time they show the play, it's not in slow
No,
motion.
Of course it is. You never see it in fast motion. These guys, how fast can they go anyway? Anyway, so what I'm saying.
They're not receivers.
All I'm saying, I'm trying to tell you is this, is that yes, it's a mental mistake, and yes, he shouldn't even be in the area to make that. He should be in the area to force and not fill it with a mistake. Force the guy to get it out. He's on the run. He's chasing him. If he's got to throw a pass, secondary, I did my job. My job is to sack him behind the line, but I'm chasing him to the sidelines here because that's all I'm going to get from him. But you can't do that. You cannot do that in this league.
Greg, what
I agree with
and I am an active listener. My wife tells me I'm not an active listener, so I appreciate
She's
that.
not right.
Depends on the topic.
I don't know what wife it does.
Greg, let me ask you about how does it have to look Sunday against Pittsburgh? Because you're not wrong about the points per game. Obviously, you need to score points in order to win. However, the limitations when you look up front. Maybe the Jets, do you think the Jets can win this week where they allow Wilson? You don't want to have him attempting 59 passes like Flacco was, but can they win it throwing the football? Or is their best case scenario, due to the injuries along the offensive line, to kind of winning one of those ugly games 13-10 where the defense has to lead the way Sunday because of the fear about the offensive line not being able to hold up, Wilson turning the football over, creating a short field? Even Sal admitted that he's going to be a little rusty. He hasn't played since August 12th.
Buckle up your seatbelt, buddy.
Whoa.
Okay.
Get in the car and drive it. Okay?
Right.
That's what it is. Get Wilson in there and you bought the kid to play this offense when he's in there. Why should I all of a sudden say, well, oh geez, I don't want him to get hurt, so I'm not going to let him do this. I'm not going to let him do. You're hurting your football team. Let the kid go play the way you developed your offense for. If you do that, everybody has a chance of getting injured. It just doesn't matter. You can't play this game to hope no one's getting injured. You play the game as best and fast and hard and smart as you possibly can, and that includes your quarterback. If you think your quarterback is a drop back passer, you better have two of the greatest offensive tackles in the history of the NFL. If your guy is a rollout, run around guy, okay, you hold your breath. Hold your breath when he does it. But why are you going to make him a drop back guy when this kid can move and he can make plays? Mahomes does it. Lamar Jackson does it.
Oh, I see. So they're letting him get by so he can run around to play to his strengths. That's what the offensive line is doing
that's
there.
fake, phony fraud now.
That is.
He just made it up.
He doesn't mean
He
that.
just made it up. It was.
Why does he do that?
All of them.
He's poking you. Don't poke the bear,
He's poking
Joe.
the bear.
Right, don't poke the bear. He's a grizzly bear.
So my answer is, let Zach Wilson be Zach Wilson. All right, you've got him for that reason. Don't let him be Joe Masseri.
That's true.
He's Zach Wilson. So let him be
no
Zach
average
Wilson.
Joe.
That's
I
correct.
would be much more of a drop back.
There's no doubt. Yeah, you'd stay in that protective pocket.
Yeah, you throwing that ball in less than 2 seconds. Let me tell you.
All right, so let's look at the other side of the ball. The Steelers coach said they're sticking with Mitch Trubisky. He's only thrown 2 touchdown passes on the season, only went over 200 yards once. You play defense. What would you do scheme-wise to put pressure on him and take advantage of the Steelers' offense?
All right, so just let me say this. And Mike Tomlin's no idiot. And I think, and I don't have the stats in front of me, I don't know, does Trubisky have an interception this year? I don't think he does.
We'll look it up.
Okay, so if he does, he has 1 interception in 3 games. The kid, with T.J. Watt on his defense, I'm telling you to go, look, just don't turn it over. We're going to keep these plays simple. It's going to be in front of you. I don't think he's thrown more than a 10-yard pass. I'm just using this as an example because I don't watch all their games.
He has 1 interception.
Right, so I'm pretty right on it.
2
3
touchdowns.
games. Right, because everything is underneath, everything is in front of him, and everything is a direct line. Because he's not going to turn the ball over. Let our defense make the plays as they did in the Cincinnati game when they got 4 interceptions and they got a couple sacks or 4 sacks, whatever it was. They just won the game. And so you as a coach walk out of there and go, yeah, we did it right there. Yeah, that was good. Yeah, you almost lost the game, but you won the game. So now they're 1-2 because it doesn't work if you're going to turn the ball over. It doesn't work unless you're going to score touchdowns. The Jets lost a game last week to the Bengals and they scored four field goals. What's 4 field goals getting you in this game? Unless you have a defense, it's number 1 in 5 categories, you're going to have a tough time winning those games. So my thing is with the Steelers, they have the same thing going that the Jets did. They have some injuries along their lines. Their defense is pretty good. Maybe they're not going to be as strong along the left side of the line because T.J. Watt's not there. Let me just some stupid stat, nebulous stat. When T.J. Watt plays, they get 4 sacks a game. When he doesn't play,
good.
He gets 1.5. The team gets 1.5.
Well, they have 2 sacks in 2 games without him.
Right. So there you go. You're making my point. I know you never won a game,
right?
They haven't won a game without T.J. Watt on the field.
Right.
They've won every game. So I think that's another stupid stat. But fact of the matter
Stupid
remains.
Stats with
I have
Greg
a
Buttle.
stupid stat coming up.
Fact of the matter remains. T.J. Watt does something for their defense that makes them extraordinary. Without him, they're not extraordinary. They're a good defense, but they're not extraordinary. That's the difference. And so you have a non-extraordinary defense now playing a non-extraordinary offense in the Jets. So you tell me what's the difference in the game? Turnovers. Going to be determined.
Yeah, we said that earlier.
Are you going to
100%.
throw the ball away? Are you going to hit the linebacker in the middle of the chest with the ball? I mean, these things can happen, but you hope they don't. But that's why I like to move him. Now I can move him, and I'm not going to worry about him getting crushed. I can move him, get rid of the ball. That's what I like about what I think the Jets can do best.
Yeah, you better also stay away from throwing the ball near Minka, though. Fitzpatrick can make plays in the football. That's one guy on the back end of that secondary for the Steelers who's an unbelievable ball hawk, and he's been a great player. So, agree with you. I mean, Watt's a special player. He's at his healthiest. He's right there as being the best defensive player in the game.
A lot easier to jump those balls when you got T.J. Watt playing.
Yeah.
No, I understand that. No, I get it. I understand.
I'm just saying.
No,
there's a lot, and that's a complimentary
right.
football.
No, but the thing I'm curious about, like when you look at. Like Tomlin, I think is comfortable playing a field position game Sunday against the Jets. Like I don't think Tomlin's going into it saying this is the game that we're going to cut Trubisky loose. Like I think it's a game where they're going to take the occasional shot downfield with Pickens. They're going to try and run Najee Harris. They're willing to put the ball deep into Jet territory, make Wilson uncomfortable, and see if Wilson makes a mistake. I think. I'd be surprised if it plays any other way than that.
Well, it's certainly going to play like that in the first half. I do agree with you.
Yeah.
And you're going to find out how many times they're going to throw the ball to Najee Harris.
Yes.
Try to get him on the edge and let a safety try to tackle him.
Oh, good luck.
They haven't tackled anyone yet. So.
I know.
So
don't listen. Chase Claypool and Pat Fryermuth aren't too bad either. They have weapons on this Steelers team.
No, I don't disagree. I'm just saying is that they have weapons, but there's no atomic bomb over there.
Let me ask you something though, because the whole narrative about the Jets going into this season was how much better this defensive front was going to be, right? You talked about getting guys back. You talked about the additions they made in the offseason. They haven't put pressure on the quarterback with their front four. Go ahead.
They have put pressure. They
Okay.
have put pressure. Oh yeah, they put pressure. Like I've said, I think a big deal about defensive lines is quarterback pressures. To see the guy a half a step away from him when he throws the ball. That's quarterback pressures. That means if something happens on that back end to help you out, you're getting a quarterback. So I like pressures. They haven't had sacks. Who are their sack guys? Quinn Williams is not their sack.
No, it was supposed to be Carl Lawson, right?
Right, but Carl Lawson, and I'm going to tell you something. I've seen him 2 years, once before he was injured and this year, and I can only go back and experientially talk about when I wrecked my knee, and I came back from my knee. Mm-hmm. It took me about 4 or 5 games to be 100% clear of what had happened to me. And every time you get hit, you would worry about that knee, or you would worry about this, and you wouldn't cut on your feet the same way. That's the one thing that I think Carl Lawson has been experiencing, is that and it's subliminal and it's underneath, and yet when you look at him, he does come off the ball, he does play hard. So it's those little things there that make him cut inside that he hasn't been able to do yet mentally, I think, because physically I think he's good. Once he gets that, I think there's a whole different game. It's just like, and I'm not comparing him to T.J. Watt, but you get him to make 2 sacks in a game, games change. If you don't turn the ball over and your defense gets 2 sacks, that's 2 possessions. That's about 8 minutes off the clock. I mean, that's a big thing for you. So to me, those things are close. They're close. What's not close and what bothers me are the mental mistakes.
Right.
Those mental mistakes by veterans in the back end is just, it's crazy. Sauce Gardner can make any mistake he wants, to me, because he's a rookie and he hasn't seen everything. But when I've watched him, I got to tell you something. That guy's the real deal. I'll tell you what, DJ Reed's been playing pretty good too. So the corners are what I thought was their weak point last year. Now it's a pretty good strong point for them. They do a pretty good job. Those touchdowns weren't because the corners weren't covering. One time the slot guy, who was it, Carter? Was it Carter?
Boyd?
Bryce Hall? No.
Oh, you mean he was covering?
It was covering the slot guy, and it was a great pass that scored the touchdown. Other than that, I think that they're covering really well corners. The safeties have to play better.
Yeah.
They have to play better, and maybe they have to prepare even more better. Is that the word, more better?
Sure, more better.
It's 2
More
words.
better.
So the Steelers are 0-2 after beating the Bengals in Week 1. Is this a spot that the Jets can get their second win, Joe?
Can they? Yes.
Will they?
I don't think so. I think that.
Joe.
Well, listen, Moose laid
He's
the
such
game
a
plan out
negative guy.
perfectly.
You gotta be honest.
You guys
have to be honest.
you guys have both laid this
I
out
can be a
perfectly,
homer,
right?
be honest.
Todd's always going to Sonny Jurgensen listening as a
Right,
kid, and he always
right.
picked Washington every week.
That's
you go.
right. That's a true story.
I know it is.
It is.
I know.
Look, Mike Tomlin
On the
hasn't had a
radio
losing
show and on
season.
George Michael's show.
Mike Tomlin hasn't had a losing season. All right,
Moose.
you guys wax poetically about Washington football. That'll be the next
Moose, you had me
podcast.
at hello.
Yeah,
No,
go ahead.
Mike Tomlin hasn't had a losing season in 15 years, right? The guy never gets flustered when he's out there, and so for that reason, I don't think
playing,
he's
Joe?
no. But the way he coaches, right? The way he approaches the game, and that's why I think Moose
Greg
laid out
said
the
it's
game
the
plan.
players.
It is the players, and he's going to put his players in a position to succeed this week. I don't think he's going to ask Trubisky to do too much. I think he is going to expect that Zach Wilson is going to be the one that makes the mistake in his first game back off injury. And honestly, I think that's what's going to happen in this one. You know, the Jets haven't proven they can take care of the ball.
I'm going to make the most obvious statement ever. Like, I trust Tomlin more than I trust Saleh.
Right.
I mean,
How can you not? I mean,
how-
really.
fair.
I mean,
how
that's
can you? I mean,
a
it's
statement
fair.
of the obvious.
right.
So,
It's the most obvious statement you could ever
That's
make.
fair.
I take the Steelers over the Jets. I think they're very, Greg's mentioned, very similar when you're
Agreed.
looking at talent-wise. There's not a distinct difference. I think what you're going to see the Steelers try and do, even without T.J. Watt, is they're going to try and see if Zach Wilson, a little nervous, a little rust, try and get to him early on to see if they can rattle him early on. But I think Pittsburgh with Trubisky, no Pickett, I think you're going to see a very similar game plan from the Steelers that you saw against the Bengals, that you saw against the New England Patriots, which is going to be ultra conservative. Trubisky's not going to allow us to lose. We're going to lose this game. If we lose it, it's going to be an ugly game. So, but I take the Steelers. I just think they'll find a way to get out a win.
So let me answer this question to me then.
Yeah.
Which I haven't figured out. Why is the line only 3?
Because the Steelers aren't that good.
Yeah, the Steelers.
So how can you then say that the Steelers are going to beat the Jets like that?
No,
That's what I'm saying.
I
If
just
they-
said
Well, I
You're
don't think it's
saying
going to be a
they're evil.
blowout.
Because Moose, you get 3 points for being home.
Well, it's kind of
so,
the whole way.
So
it's not necessarily 3 anymore when guys are
in
making
Pittsburgh
lines.
it is.
Well, no, it's not anymore. That used to be the way like 15, 20 years ago, and because there's no true.
I'm
when you
calling
look for-
Kenny White right
no,
now.
No, when you look at a home field advantage.
It depends on where. There are very few
Well, I
3-point
asked
home
this
field
question to
Pittsburgh
the
is a
experts
home
because I don't
field
know.
advantage.
Yeah, no, right. So there's very few places where when someone's making a line that they're giving the home team or laying 3, where it's automatic 3 points. Now, weather can also factor in, but it's usually 1.5 to 2. That's
Okay.
what you're looking at
So
now.
there's a point difference.
Yeah,
between
but
the
that's
two teams
huge. That's huge in
talent-wise.
making
Right,
these
but
lines.
that's
Right.
huge when you're looking at making a line.
Yeah.
I don't listen. I think it's going to be an ugly game. I don't think this is a game that it's out of reach for the Jets in the second half. I think it's going to be a low-scoring, ugly football game where the Jets in the fourth quarter, if they could put together a drive, maybe could take the lead.
I look at it this
no,
way.
I don't necessarily disagree. I don't
I
know.
don't think they're getting 24, Greg. I don't think they're getting 24 on
I
Sunday.
will tell you something. They better get 23. You know what I'm saying? And again, this is what I've always said. You get 23 points, you got a chance to win over 50% of your games in this league.
Yeah.
But you can't, everyone has watched games where guys win 45-42. So I scored 42 points and lost the game. Well, how many times are you going to do that? Twice a year? Once a year? But if you score 17 points or you score 12 points, I'm telling you, you're losing 90% of the time.
Yeah.
So that's why I say the obvious: score points to win.
I just don't know how. The Jets are going to score. They're down to their fourth and fifth options at tackle right now. This offensive line has been a revolving door of players this entire season, and now you've got a quarterback out there who hasn't had a chance to play with them for the first 3 weeks of the year. Look, just on that alone, even if they play their best, and like you said, the best they can play this week. That going against the Steelers defense that has had extra time to rest, it just feels like a tall task, and this is one that Pittsburgh has circled on their calendar.
No, you're probably 100% with a bullseye on it. I'm not going to debate anything you said because it's quite a possibility. But again, like I said, is that you don't know how healthy Zach Wilson is. He could be 100% healthy, or he could, maybe he's 80%.
Yeah, I mean, he was 100%. He was 100% healthy in that first preseason game, and that didn't turn out too well.
Terrible.
So where he got injured.
What does that have to do with this game right now, Joe? What does that have to do with
Because in his first game out there, he throws a pick, right?
Neat,
and then
he
gets
to the guy in the chest.
No, of course, right. He throws a pick, or into triple cover. Doesn't see the linebacker.
It was a bullseye, right?
And that's a preseason. That's a preseason defense over there. It's vanilla. They tell me. I love vanilla.
That's right.
Right, what color is this?
Good luck finding Minka.
Bottom line, the Jets are a homecoming opponent. They circle them. The opposing team circles them. It's like a homecoming game, but they're going to ruin it for the Steeler fans. 23-20 Jets. Buttle gets his 23 points.
There you go.
All right, let's move to the New York Football Giants. Sterling Shepard is a huge injury and huge loss. If you look around the receiving core, the only veteran they got there is Kenny Galladay. He really hasn't played in a year and change for the Giants. If you look at his stats, what can they do to get something out of him, Moose?
I don't know if it's necessarily. I think the talent is there. I think it's a matter of belief. When you have the offensive coordinator Mike Kafka going, Richie James has really stepped up. There's a reason why David Sills is getting a majority of the snaps at wide receiver. This regime did not sign him, even though he's making $21.5 million. The other thing with Kenny Galladay, when they put him in, all he does is drop the ball.
Catch the ball! My God!
All he does is drop the ball.
That's going to shake someone's belief in a receiver.
Galladay in Detroit was that he was always productive.
Yes.
He always got hurt though.
Yes.
Now he comes to the Giants and
he doesn't play enough to get hurt.
Right. It cost them more to cut him, so they can't get rid of him. So he's making $21.5 million. It doesn't necessarily mean they have to trade him. I wonder if there's any language in his contract about injury. That's why, he's not. You've seen teams do that in the past. I'm not saying there is and there isn't. I'm just curious if there would be. But for Galladay here, when he's had opportunities, first preseason game against the Patriots, Daniel Jones hit him in the hands, right over the middle, and he dropped the ball right by the goal line. That would have went for a touchdown. So, he's not going to get a shoulder to cry on because he complained about playing time when the Giants were 2-0.
Right.
I mean,
ridiculous.
That's it. Right, and he wasn't the reason. The receivers were not. The receivers dropped the ball on Monday night against the Dallas Cowboys. The offensive line was also awful.
Yeah, I mean, I came out last week and tried to defend Kenny Galladay, right?
How'd that work out for you?
Well, terribly, given the fact that he couldn't catch the ball. I mean, he looked terrible on Monday night, and honestly, hanging his head, everything. You go out there, after you make those comments, you got to go out on the field and back it up. And, I mean, he's had enough opportunities, right, with this organization. He hasn't performed on the field, and if you're not going to perform, you're not going to be out there playing, especially under this new regime, which doesn't usually happen. Now, as far as his future with the team, we talked about this last week too. He's due a $4.5 million roster bonus next year that went into effect by him being on the team 3 days into the season this year or something like that. His trade value, and that's in addition to his regular salary, which I think is about $9 million next season. There is no market for him, and that's going to be a huge hit to the Giants on the cap. And they don't have any room right now. Otherwise, they'd be bringing somebody else in with the injuries they've had over here. I mean, you're going to need Darius Slayton to step up. And he has shown glimpses. As a rookie, I thought he was going to I honestly thought he was going to flourish. But you got to do a better job of getting Daniel Jones sometimes. The guy's running for his life, and they didn't lose this game because of him. He, I think, did everything he could to keep him in the game.
So after starting 2-0, expectations started to rise. This is such a reactionary league. Nobody's realistic. It's just what happened last weekend.
Wait a minute, Moose never got that high. He always tried to
Moose is
keep it
realistic.
steady.
I'm the one that gets overly hyped about things.
They're not. They are what they put importance on winning games, but all of a sudden the Giants were not winning the division.
No one said that.
No,
but expectation.
Well, you have them winning every week.
I have them winning every week, which means they'll win the Super Bowl. But that's not the point. We will get to that later in the podcast. But for right now, do you feel like the expectations are more in line with where they were? It's about development. It's about evaluating the roster and improving every day, as both Shane and Dayball told you in the preseason special.
Yeah, that's what they said. I mean, before the start of the year, they couldn't have downplayed expectations anymore. It's almost as like, don't get upset, don't watch us. I mean, they told you, they didn't literally say that. They basically said that they're rebuilding. They go into it. It's about playing well on the field, representing the Giants well off of the field. And they've got a large percentage of that roster that they're going to try and turn over here in short order, and you can't do it in one offseason.
But, Greg, if they get a win this weekend and go to 3-1, then again, the fan expectations become a little bit more unrealistic. Craig, why do you think fans are so prisoners of the moment?
They're not.
No.
Fans are prisoners of history. That's their problem. They are so used to the Giants winning a Super Bowl every 5 years or whatever it may be, or winning or getting to the playoffs, that it today doesn't matter what happens unless you win. Same with the Jet fans. Jet fans are so used to history. Same old Jets. And so the problem is they're not in the moment. And players are. Every player is in the moment. Every golfer on a golf course should be in the moment.
Yes,
it's about the shot you're hitting, not the last one
or
not the next one. And that's the hard part about fans, because they're fans. So the expectations for fans go up and down as the series ends or the series begins, or the shank punt, or the pass was dropped. Everything is, whoa. And boy, are you tired emotionally after. You know what I'm saying? That's a hard thing.
It's exhausting. These players don't know how easy they have it. It's the fans and the emotional roller coaster that are really spent after the game.
So true, Joe. So true. So I'm driving in this morning. I'm listening to WFAN. Boomer and Gio were talking about Saquon, and apparently the day before they both said that there should be or could possibly be a trade market. They looked to Buffalo. They were saying that if they trade him to Buffalo, Buffalo's got a chance to win the Super Bowl, and that now is when Saquon's trade value is at its highest. There is a possibility that they can't afford, Joe, you talked about the cap and the lack thereof, to sign Saquon if he continues to have a huge year like he's having now. Joe, does it make any sense to trade the face of the franchise at this point?
I think that would be hard with the culture that Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen are trying to build, right? If he's doing everything, and by all accounts, they love him over there and he loves them. So I think it would be too big a hit to the culture that they're trying to build. But I do see from an organizational standpoint, right, if we take hearts and minds out of this, it would make sense, because you said it. His value is as high as it's probably ever been outside of his rookie year. And running backs in this league are a dime a dozen. They don't garner a lot on the open market. So if you're going to trade him to a team that has Super Bowl aspirations, obviously now you'll get the most for him. But I think what you would lose by taking him out of this locker room, and what message that would send to the rest of the team right now, just not what this regime wants to do.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that come into play. Number one, conversations have had with Barkley, or really do you have an appetite as an organization to signing Barkley after this season? Is he amicable to taking a deal that might be less than what he's looking for to remain with the Giants and remain in this marketplace? Remember, he wanted to be drafted by the Giants coming out of Penn State, and he was local kid, right? The third thing is, what is Buffalo potentially or any other team willing to offer? The idea is, I mean, the problem with the logic or throwing it out there, I'm not saying anybody on the Giants is untradeable. They're all tradable. The Giants aren't a particularly good football team. The deal is the Bills can win a Super Bowl without Saquon Barkley. I mean, the team is Josh Allen. I'd be more, if I were the Buffalo Bills, I'd be looking for a safety to replace Micah Hyde, who just got placed on the IR with a neck injury, and he's done for the rest of the year. Like, those are the things that if you're, the Bills did not lose the game against Miami this week because they couldn't move the football. The Bills lost the game against Miami because there were sloppy in-game situations that they needed to rectify. That's why Dorsey was going crazy as their offensive coordinator.
As the clock is running out.
The clock is winding down, right? Because McKenzie doesn't get the ball and doesn't get out of bounds. They didn't line up in order to spike the ball at the end of the game. So, I mean, could the Giants trade Barkley? Yeah, but I think there's things as an organization you got to figure out. Number one, is he signable? Number two, are we willing to sign him? Are we looking to invest in a running back? If you want to say, well, I have no interest given the injury history, given the time in the NFL, the shelf life for a running back, I have no interest in signing Saquon Barkley. Yeah, then you.
Well, Greg Buttle would have no running backs on his team because he doesn't believe in running the ball at all.
Not.
So he'd trade Saquon Barkley for a bag of potato chips.
Here's the funny part.
Go ahead.
And you are 100% right about what I feel about the running game. But you take Saquon Barkley out of that Giants offense, you have no offense. So my thing is that the Giants would never do that. You'd have to be nuts to do that. I don't care if you got 2 first-round draft choices for him right away.
Well, sign me up.
Saquon Barkley is a really good football player for the Giants, and he can be for another 3-4 years anyway.
I'm sorry, you get 2 first-round picks. I will help drive Saquon to the
that's not
airport.
gonna
Joe
happen.
saying, I know it's not.
I think
It's
if they
insane.
get a second or third, I think it's worth it if you're not planning on re-signing him.
I mean, Joe Douglas hit lottery trading Adams for 2 first-rounders.
Highway
Awesome.
robbery.
Everyone should kneel at the altar of Joe Douglas for that one. It's unbelievable. But again, Saquon Barkley is a really good football player. Now the question is, and this is what I've always said about running backs, you only need to run the ball inside the 20 and on short yardage and goal line. Now you have to run the ball. You got to be able to do things to open up a defense. But when you have a running back like Saquon Barkley is like LaDainian Tomlinson. That's what that. That you can go and you can make him play these different positions out of the backfield: wide receiver, slot guy, running back, throw it to him, screen pass. I think he's made the best moves when they screen pass to him. So to me, he's valuable in that offense. He probably single-handedly has saved Daniel Jones from getting crushed half the time because of his versatility and his athleticism. So on that role, I'm going to say I would never trade him. I'd use him up, but I'd use him up. I wouldn't run him to death, but I'd use him up. He might get the most passes, most targets in a game by me if I were the Giants.
Well, at this point, the Giants need somebody to throw the ball,
Anybody
so why
to
the heck
throw the
not?
ball to.
Correct.
So I got to say, I give Boomer and Gio credit. It was a good talking point for radio, and I took it for a podcast. But the other reason they can't trade him is what Greg touched upon. The offensive line is a sieve. Daniel Jones is running for his life. He doesn't have receivers to throw to. What on earth would they do without Saquon?
True. You're right. It's also the context of what the organization is looking at. Remember, Shane didn't draft him; Dave Gettleman did. So they're in a really bad salary cap situation. They've got a lot of misspent money. They don't have a particularly talented roster. It might be really appealing for them to pair guys off to get draft choices because they could continue and start to turn that roster over. That's what you look at now. Can Barkley be the bridge to, as Greg was mentioned, bridge to another era of Giant football and help this team, and play his rear end off? help them win some games before they're ready to seriously win games. Yeah, I don't doubt that he can be that guy. I just got to find, like, he'd be more, if I was a team, I know this might bother Greg, but if I was a team that my team is built and designed around the ground game, like I am a run-first team, my quarterback manages the game, and I've got a top 5 defense, and my running back goes out, my bell cow running back goes out, then I'm looking at Saquon. The Buffalo Bills, like, for argument's sake, they're going to win because of Josh Allen on offense. I mean, that's what they're going to win on. They didn't come into the year, they drafted yet another running back, Dalvin Cook's brother this year. They've got Moss, they've got Devin Singletary, if he could ever hold on to the football and stop putting the ball on the ground. They've got a talented tight end. That entire team is built around Josh Allen. You're not going to take the ball out of Josh Allen's hands.
That is awesome. And you know what? Now you're talking my language. Melissa, you're listening to me. I guarantee you're listening to me.
He's actually taking notes. I've been looking.
I'm telling you right now, and I don't know the stat. You guys can do all this nonsense and look it up if you want, but I feel the stat. How many Super Bowl winning football teams have been in the top 10 of rushing in the NFL since 2000? And I don't think any of them have. In fact, I bet you there are more teams that were in the bottom 25 to 32 in rushing than there were teams at the top 10 rushing in a Super Bowl. And so the importance of running the ball.
I would imagine the last team to get there was that 49er team that lost to Mahomes and the Chiefs. With Garoppolo at quarterback.
Maybe they were.
They might have been the last
but
one.
my point about this is look, football is a specialty business right now. You need to have a really good team, but it's about situation substitution and how you can maneuver your offense to play. Whether San Francisco's with that wide receiver that plays running
Deebo
back,
Samuel.
right? I mean, that guy is awesome. So he can do a lot of things. So can Saquon Barkley. Now, again, he's not in that same speed class as the other guy, but you have a guy that can do so much for you. Fill in other pieces. Evan Neal. Evan Neal may look like a disappointment right now for where they drafted him, but here's a kid that was playing at Alabama. He's got the greatest disposition for offensive tackle. Mm-hmm. He's a beast. He's big. He's fast. He's got to just learn a little about pass protection that Sable couldn't teach him in Alabama because there wasn't anybody in college football that was going to challenge him on a pass. So now in the NFL, they all do. I don't care what size they are, and you have trouble figuring it out. Give him a year or two, and that kid might really be out great. Now, does that help Jones this year? No. But again, we've talked about that. The Giants, I think, at this point, and I don't want to say don't care, because their look is down the road, is, okay, how am I going to get this guy better, even at Daniel Jones' expense? I mean, so that guy you have a piece. You got, that's why I always go back to the Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley is more valuable to keep than he is in the trade market.
So the Giants have the Bears this weekend. Justin Fields is not playing great. Maybe it's a shot for the Giants to rely on their defense, keep the game close.
The problem with that is you don't have Leonard Williams.
Right.
I know.
And that defensive line looked awful without Leonard Williams and their lack of ability to stop the run. I mean, at one point in time,
And the Bears can rush the ball.
well, they can. Well, Montgomery's hurt, but Khalil Herbert
Was
their
incredible. Went for over 100 last week.
Right. So you look at the Dallas Cowboys, 24 carries at one point in time in that game on Monday night. Had 24 carries. Pollard and Elliott for over 160 yards.
Yeah.
It's a problem. Now the thing is you don't have a CeeDee Lamb. You don't have a passing game that you need to respect. Fields has really struggled throwing the football.
Right.
I would think that the Giants and Wink Martindale, after having the ball run down their throat the way that they did last week, would be able to step up and, just like you saw Tennessee do it against the Raiders, kind of a one-trick pony offensively. I would think the Giants could be able to contain the ground game of the Bears.
Joseph?
I think that when you look at the game last week on Monday there, I should say, with the Giants and Cowboys, I mean, the Cowboys have a solid offensive line. Moose talked about it last week when it comes one of the better run-blocking offensive lines in the league. But they also are running out 41-year-old Jason Peters out there playing guard, right? And this is a makeshift. You talk about thinking, right? There's a lot less thinking when you're doing a normal running game. Maybe in a zone blocking scheme, there's a little bit more. But, when you can just go and run downhill. That Giants defense without Leonard Williams, looked so different. They just looked like they couldn't get any push up the middle. And right now, that's where the Giants are weakest on both sides of the ball, right? Up the middle on the offensive line and on the defensive line if Leonard Williams isn't going to be out there. So I look at what the Bears did, and you mentioned Justin Fields and how he struggled. He's only thrown the ball about 15 times a game, which in the modern NFL, when you got the Jets out here throwing the ball 59 times with Joe Flacco under center, I think this year is really about survival for Fields. They know the roster's not there around him, but if Herbert can go out there and put up those numbers, I think the Giants are going to struggle. Look, again, this is like the Jets and the Steelers, and we're talking about two teams that aren't very good, that don't have a ton of expectation.
It's a winnable game.
Yeah, it'll be a winnable game. It'll be a close game. I wouldn't be surprised. Again, it's one of those coin flip games. A turnover here by either team could end up being the difference in this one.
Moose, flip the coin. Who's going to win?
I'd say the Giants in a close game.
Nice.
But yeah.
Way to go, Sonny. Joe?
I'm going to go with the Giants as well in this one here. Yeah.
Greg, unanimous?
No.
Ugh.
And I'm thinking about it, seriously speaking. The Giants, everyone puts so much on the running game, and the Giants have no passing game right now. They got no wide receivers. If we talked about Galladay and everybody else, and is Robinson healthy? All of this nonsense. So when you look at the Giants, what are the Giants going to be in this game? They're going to be one-armed. That's all they are.
Bears, but so are the Bears. They're mirror images of each other.
Yeah, but the Bears have a little. They have a little better in the passing game than the Giants do at this point. As a team-wise, they both are good defensively. They hold teams, under 20 points, that kind of stuff. But I just think that the Bears are just a little bit better than the Giants in the passing game. And the Giants, after this week, have gotten worse in the passing game. So I'm going with the Bears because of that.
Those 15 passes are going to be the difference. I go Big Blue. Make it 3-1.
Can't wait till next week.
Exactly. Yes, you can pile on. All right, guys, watch Joe, Moose, and Greg Buttle and David Tyree on the New York Blitz, 10:30, and the whole gang will be back for New York Sports Nation 11 and Yankee Nation 11:30. Pix 11. Thank you.
Thanks for listening.
Am I supposed to say something?
No, you did a fantastic job.
You were great.